Just there's thanks for coming. Just great spirits.
They said last night it's going to be sleeting and raining.
I still do support that.
But it is freezing. It's just and the temperature is fine.
I looked at myself and said, shorts. So we're
He's working. And so that is just, he's got winter all the time. That is okay. My son's 5, I thought maybe he might change. If I always have all those just, that's so long. I think I'm really cold. I don't need my son wants to wear shorts. I hate to tell you I won't change. I'll just give so just pick shorts that you like and remove the others. Have a sweatshirt if you need to have. Oh yes, they curve down to your knees. My son loves the long socks. And the long socks. Yeah, you know that much.
That's how much of
So his kneecaps are really well. I stayed up cold water in the morning just because it's a good time to do it. Always a rain socks. Throw away all the single socks that didn't have a mattress. I'm like, it has to be something. They're his favorite.
Then it'll show up and
It'll
you'll...
show up and I'll it drives me nuts.
Okay. See, my son likes opposite sides. So it
Oh,
works out
that's
perfect.
okay.
There.
Good to see Leslie. Yes, I'm here to serve her. It's nice to see you.
Doing some work with
Hey,
this
Leslie,
crazy woman
how are
here.
you? Good to see you. How are you? How are you?
Wonderful. Just saw Stacy.
Yeah.
Good. Your life easy.
We're good.
Okay.
We're all set.
All right. I'm gonna look at the recording.
Okay, thank you.
Make sure I hoping that the guy from Channel 8. AP. Application stuff. Okay. And she said she was doing some live tweeting. You don't mind if I take some pictures?
Not at all. I love it.
Because then I'm gonna pile of pictures for.
Okay.
Take care of it.
All right, and I'll be on the lookout for this gal. She's gonna have to wait till
Yeah, yeah. I think she wants the panelists and then parents. I mean, I'm fine, but I'd love to come and, yeah, because they're giving their time to do this.
Sounds like a plan.
We're good. Thank you, Leslie.
When did you get home, Liz?
Last night about 10.
My mom's at work. I like to think that my dad grew up in seminary.
I did.
You're such a trooper. A trooper.
It's all good.
Christina, we're streaming.
Oh, good. I was just going to check in and look at that. You did it. This is our first live stream, so we were like, see if it works. I feel so high tech.
Everybody's got their phones out.
Oh, look. There we are.
I know. It's like I said, there's about a 30 delays.
That is fabulous. Stephanie, I love it. That is so cool. Very cool. I'm just going to do a brief intro.
That's perfect. Am I up first or?
I figured we just
Anytime there's a microphone, it's good. My children's always good.
And we're going to have this going, streaming right now. And we're going to tape it, so you guys are welcome to have it on your sites as well, too.
Sit down. One of those days where you're in the shower and you think you're going to stay in the shower and get out and then my husband prides himself on being the last one. We just had my 9-year-old volleyball with us, and like nothing we do makes him he's cold all the time. So it's like, I'm so glad. You're nice to have him come with you. You're nice to have him come with you. Is he from Richmond? No, he's my husband brought him down. Where? All my family, all my husband's family's up in Massachusetts. So they were down there for Thanksgiving. We actually talked about that next. He's thinking he's going back this spring. Good morning. How are you? It's just that then they can't get around this one. We worry about it all.
Well, oh, not at all. I have a whole nother. Yeah, no.
Thank you so much.
Do you want more than one?
No,
I won't
if I
remember
have to take that,
anything.
if I have to take that many notes, then
See,
we're
I'm
probably
like
in a private session.
And you probably have. That's my, I think Karen, she did, yes, she retired in August. And she was, yes, and her works, they, Kathleen, or Kathleen, probably.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, please do.
in contact. Huh, interesting. No, it's fine. So, I'm hoping for something, I don't have it yet. So now I'm two of my boys were married. Yeah, this is son and daughter-in-law just got married. Other daughter always had to see. See, it comes up so fast. I know, it's that right. It's not like it's under 2 hours. So you all been ready to get conversation. Is there a curriculum in their home or do they have to do community talent
Sure. Camera crew or steam camera crew ready? All right, I guess I will use this.
All right, can everybody hear me okay? Good, all right. Well, kind of let a few more people come on in and welcome. Hello, welcome to Children's Museum of Richmond Short Pump. We're glad you're here. How many people have been to this location before? Oh, good. Okay. So you weren't surprised by the traffic or the parking or anything like that. That's good. Well, we're glad you're here. Come on in. My name is Liz Pierce. I am the Director of Parent Engagement for the Children's Museum of Richmond, and I lead Commonwealth Parenting as well. So today's event is a joint effort. We had an event like this last year, and it was just like this. It was very well attended. We had a lot of interest, and folks came out, so we know more people will come in, and we'll just make them come sit up front. But what we're trying to do today is give good information to families, which is what we do at the museum and we do with Commonwealth Parenting. So a few years ago, when we started thinking about getting our museum more acclimated to kindergarten readiness, we took a look at all of our exhibits, all of our programming, and realized that these first years, as you all know, are so important. And the board of the museum decided to make a concerted effort to make kindergarten readiness one of our key signature features of our museum. So we look very hard at the exhibits we have to make sure they are helping children get ready to grow and learn. We surround ourselves with people on our board and our academic advisory committees to help us learn the best ways to help children get ready for kindergarten, and we host events like this. One thing I do want to say as we get started, you may have seen in the news, Dr. Bill Bosher passed away this past week, and we are all very saddened by that. It was a shock to many of us. He was a very good friend to the museum, into our community. He served as a board member of the Children's Museum, and he was additionally on the Academic Advisory Committee that I just mentioned. He will be sorely missed. I know you two ladies knew him as well. So he was such a force in our community. Served with had a distinguished career, and he will be missed. As I mentioned, today we have two of our own experts from the community as well. We want you to feel free to ask questions at the end. We're going to have a long period of time so we can all ask questions. The two gals will speak for a few minutes additionally, and then we'll just kind of open it up, very casual style, talk about different questions you all have. Just some housekeeping. There is a restroom back in the back of the building, the men's and ladies' rooms, and then there are also restrooms back here. There's water and some refreshments back there as well if you'd like anything. Let's see, I think that's about all I had. Just want to let everybody know too, the last thing is that we have programs like this throughout the year. Commonwealth Parenting has started an RVA Parents Forum series. We had two very successful ones in the past couple months. We had bullying in October, and then we had alcohol and drugs in November. And we talked about some really tough topics that we're going through with our kids, whether they're elementary school, middle school, or high school age. These are tough topics that affect all of them. Our January topic is on divorce. It's called Divorce, the Rippling Effect, and that'll be January 13th. So I encourage you to look at our website and sign up for that as well. So, without further ado, our two gals here are, I consider them friends now. We've worked together a couple years. Amanda Surgener on the end works with the collegiate school. She's been in the education field for 24 years in various capacities. Dr. Cheryl Thomas has been in the education field for 33 years, and I'll let them tell a little bit more about themselves as well when we get started. But we're going to talk with Amanda first, and she's going to talk with us about the importance of making intentional educational choices and choosing the best fit for your child. Thank you, ladies.
Good morning. Is this on? Wait, now I am. I'm Amanda Surgener, and Liz, thank you so much. Cheryl and I enjoy doing this together. We've become partners in crime, and welcome any questions, and we just want to have real forthright conversations. As Liz mentioned, I have been in the education field for quite some time, most specifically at collegiate for 20 years. And I will say that I've spent the bulk of my time working with families around issues with school choice and finding the right fit for children and for families. And it's been incredibly rewarding. And yet, I don't want to say I'm totally defined by my professional field. I think the thing I'm most proud of is that I'm a mom with 4 children. And that's sort of been the biggest blessing of my life. But as I do the work that I do, I have to say there's nothing more gratifying than having children who feel good about their environment, who feel successful in the classroom and outside of the classroom. And when it's not good, it's as painful for the parent as it is for the child. So I'm incredibly committed. I get the question a lot, Amanda, how do you work full time and have 4 children? How do you find that balance, and why do you do what you do? And I for a couple of years, I struggled with the answer to that, and it's clear as a bell to me now. I think I was profoundly influenced by some of the educational choices that my parents made for my brothers and me. And we all 3 started in the public school system. My father was a civil rights lawyer, a diehard public school man, and believed that that was the right decision for our family, and it was. But as we grew and changed in terms of learning styles and needs, they shifted gears for all of us, and we all ended up graduating from independent schools, so we had the best of both worlds. Now, what I will tell you is at the time, I thought we were the most dysfunctional family in the world, because my younger brother graduated from St. Christopher's, my older brother graduated from the New Community School. He was incredibly bright but severely dyslexic, and I graduated from collegiate. And I kept thinking, growing up, we have not found our niche. We just don't know what we're doing. But as I look back on it, I really applaud my parents for realizing that we were all really different and that there were options in our city that met the individual needs of each of us. And my mom is old and a little confused these days, but I actually, before coming here, said, Mom, how did you pull that off? Why would you go through that? And she said, because I wanted to do the right thing for my children. And she said, and yes, there were complications to it, but I felt that commitment. So I say that's why I wake up in the morning and feel really good about what I do, because we have great options in our city and are exceedingly fortunate. Before I begin, I would love to see how many of you are first-time parents doing the kindergarten thing. Lots of you. That's a beautiful thing. Well, let me tell you this. The fact that you are all in this room right now is an incredible testament to your commitment to your children and to your desire to do an exploration that's thorough. And I think before we have children, we make choices and decisions, and they have impact and ramifications. And if you don't get it right, well, it's fine. But once you have children, you feel an ownership and a responsibility that is pretty significant. And I would put school choice up there as probably one of the most important decisions you'll make as a parent. So doing the work you're doing is essential. If I give you any advice today, I would say that take the time to get it right. And that time requires not just, don't wake up on August 15th, 2 weeks before kindergarten's about to start and say, okay, now let me figure out where we're going to go to school. You need to be a year in advance, if not a little bit more, so that you don't feel rushed or pressured, so that you can explore every single thing that's out there. And that way the pace of it can be your own. The second thing I would say is you've got to visit schools. You've got to visit independent schools, you've got to visit public schools. You cannot rely on a website, you cannot rely on a brochure. They don't do it justice. You've got to immerse yourself in the way the community operates, and that's essential. The final thing I'm going to say is you need to keep an open mind. Even if you know in your heart of hearts where you think you want to send your child, you will only reinforce that decision by looking very broadly and by doing your homework. Power is knowledge, and that way you can look in the mirror and say, I've looked at everything, and yes, this is exactly what I want to do. If I think back, and my oldest child is a senior in college, believe it or not, but I can remember our decision-making around her school choice in kindergarten, and I wish if I could go back in time that I realized that it's a private decision. I felt a little bit conflicted in our choice for her by the views of everybody else around us. I felt like pressure from parents, pressure from other parents, my parents or my children's fellow peer parents, neighbors. I felt like it wasn't necessarily a personal choice, and the thing I will say to you, it is private, it is personal. The choice you make may not resemble the choice someone else makes, and that's what's great. From a strategic standpoint, in terms of how to be thinking about this, I think the way I look at it is there's sort of three circles that create knowledge for you. The first is, who's your family? What are your family's values? What's important to you? Is a religious affiliation with the school important? Is a non-denominational school important to you? Are you interested in intense academics? Are you interested in character development? Are you interested in sort of a well-rounded general experience? How important is diversity socioeconomically and otherwise to you? That's the family circle that only you can come up with. Your second circle is your child. And I'll be honest with you, parents know children best. Now you can supplement that knowledge with feedback that you get from preschool teachers, with feedback you get from relatives. If you go through an independent school readiness program, you can get feedback from that assessment. But you need to build in your mind who your child is, what his or her strengths are, what his or her needs are, and be clear on that. And then your third circle is actually the universe of schools that exist. And I'm going to tell you, the metropolitan area is incredibly rich with good choices. You've got some of the finest public schools and some of the finest independent schools you'll find on the East Coast. You've got co-ed schools, you've got single-sex schools. You've got religiously affiliated schools, you've got non-denominational schools. You have places that are incredibly structured, and you have places that are simply self-directed learning. And what you have to do is take those three circles of your family values, who your child is and what your universe of options are, and you've got to find what that sweet spot for your family is where those three circles are connected. And it requires thought. It requires being introspective and deciding what you need. Because what you don't want to do is settle. You never want to sort of be in a place and limp along. So don't, if you do not want prayer in a school, do not choose a parochial school. It'll irritate you, and you don't have to. But you have to be honest with yourself about what you need and what you can live with and what perhaps you can't. Before I turn it over, if you walk out of here today and remember anything, the first piece of advice I would give is clarity takes time. I gave a tour to a group of young families not too long ago, and it was a great conversation about schools in general. And one of the moms came up to me after the tour and she said, what do you do if both parents aren't on the same page? If both parents are seeing this very differently? And I said, well, you celebrate the breadth of opinion. I said, but don't make it a fight. Make it a partnership and a project. And so as you explore what those options are, don't try to make a decision prematurely. Work together and you sort of find that common ground as you can. The second piece of advice is, it's okay if your decision in school choice does not resemble your sister's, your neighbor's, or even what you thought you would initially do. And my younger brother has 3 girls in Henrico County Public Schools. Never once looked at an independent school, as happy as he could be. And we're both settled in the choices that we made and feel like they complement each other. They don't compete with each other. The third piece of advice is, even if you have the best experience academically ever, don't try to put your academic experience onto your child, because education has changed, it's gotten better, and quite frankly, your experience may not even exist in today's world. And so you have to think freely for your child. Don't take all the good stuff that you got. You just don't have to weave it into the perfect reality. I'm married to the best man in the world, but he is a lawyer and he makes these lists of pros and cons. And if there are like 10 pros and 2 cons, that's how he makes his decisions. And I drive him absolutely wild because I'm very instinctive. I would say you've got to gather the facts about schools, but you've got to let yourself have some instinct too. And that means you don't have to be able to explain everything. You do have to feel right about the choice. At the end of the day, don't give in to quick assumptions and quick words like all independent school kids are, all public school kids are, SOLs are, tuition is. You know what? Those are all too easy. The outs are too easy, and you've got access to the information, so don't fall into that category. At the end of the day, you don't have a crystal ball. You got to make the best decision you know how to make for the short term, and you're not ever stuck. And that's where this program today absolutely empowers you to know that. Students who start in the independent school world will end up in the public school world. Students who start in the public school world may end up in the independent school world. We hold hands and work together for this community, and for all of us to be successful, there has to be that mutual respect and that mutual sort of conversation, which is exactly what today's about. The next step is sort of what you can do for your children as they are about to enter into a formal school setting. And I'm going to turn it over to the expert.
I don't know that I'm an expert. Thank you, Amanda. Well, first of all, I'll just tell you a little bit about myself, as Amanda did. Like her, although I've been an educator for a very long time, I think the thing that I value most in a lot of my decision making is being a mother of 2 children and a grandmother of 2 children. One who is in kindergarten this year, and my youngest is a senior at Virginia Tech, so it's been a long time since I've been visiting kindergarten that way. Which was perfect when the Children's Museum called and talked about it. I said, oh, I've got some fresh stuff now that I didn't have last year. And again, to separate away with what Amanda has said. And, when I think about the purposes of education, and, we could talk about creating an informed citizenship, we could talk about workforce development, we could talk about creating critical thinkers, which is where you read that everywhere. But in the end, I think it's really bigger. It's in order for humanity to survive, we really have to be learners. So no matter what your view of all those list of purposes of education, in the end, our survival depends on it. And of course, I saw some infants out there. I saw questions. Now, how many of you have a 2-year-old right now? Okay, you're probably thinking, if I have to hear why one more time, why? And you think, I don't want my child asking any more questions. And if you are like me, there was a time, as much as I value questions, where I did say because I say so. And that's just normal parenting. But with that said, if you have one thing you take away from today, at least of my portion, the one thing that I want you to take away that you can develop to help your child is to develop their curiosity. That's the number one thing. Develop their curiosity. There's not a silver bullet. There's not one this or that. Amanda touched on this too. Each child, each human in this room have their own learning journey. They have their own life journey. And those of you that have more than one children, and Amanda's very versed in this, you know that their needs are very different. And what they are curious about. And where are their strengths? What's their first string thing that makes them who they are? So with that said, I want to just run through a quick little list, and then we'll get to questions. But everything that I'm saying really comes around curiosity. And some of it will not be a surprise. And I know you know things like they need to learn their name and their address and phone number for safety. They need to be able to hold a pencil and color and draw and be nice and be kind. And we know that. But I want to think beyond the traditional thinking around kindergarten. Any school that you visit will be able to give you information around the academic requirements for kindergarten, what they're expected to do by the end of the year, and what they're expected to know or they would like for them to know when they come. My comments are going to be more about the journey, the fun part of it. How do they get to that point? And I heard somebody here was from the library, so they'll like my number one. Read aloud and read every day. Not just fiction, which might be your favorite, nonfiction. I've got a grandson that really doesn't want to hear anything, and so now we're having to try to explore fiction. But you give him something nonfiction, and he will go crazy with it. A lot of people don't think about poetry. Parents reading poetry, magazines. When you think about read aloud, we tend to narrow our view of what that means. It can be captioned on the television when they're watching certain things where they can read and hear what they're saying. Bookstores, technology. My own mother, 2 quick stories. When I had a working mother, and she had 2 children, and she was going to graduate school when we were little. And there wasn't always a lot of time by the time you prepared and took care of the home and the family. And I found out later when I was older and kind of like Amanda did, sought advice from my mother. And she said, well, I read my textbooks that I had to read for my class. I put y'all in my lap and I read it, real sing-song. And y'all just loved it. So I would call my mother just the most multitasker I know. But with that, even this Thanksgiving, my youngest cousin is 38. And at the end of the Thanksgiving meal, she has a 2-year-old. She always has a bunch of questions about how to help Hades grow and be better and learn. And she said, Hilda, do you remember that book, The Giving Tree? Can you get that back out? And so here we are from age 2 to probably 72, and we're listening to The Giving Tree. So when I say read aloud and embrace books and print, I don't just mean it can be just before you go to bed, but it can be any time, anything that you see. And libraries have a wealth of information. and can often guide you to help you find things that are of great interest to your children. The next thing would be ask questions, such as, what do you think will happen next? How would you change that ending to make it better? What's your favorite part? Where do rainbows come from? What makes the sky look like that? Why is it that color? What would happen if? That's your favorite little question still right there. What would happen if? You can use it in terms of helping them understand behavior, or you can use it with science experiments and all. While I'm on the science experiments, when I think about curiosity, there are some very simple experiments that you can just do at home. It doesn't have, you don't need all the goggles and the code, although that might make a wonderful holiday gift. It is the idea of having your children predict things that they think might happen and then explore what's appropriate at their level. There was a little 2-year-old waiting to get on the train out there, and she had a watch, and she knew what time it was. So no matter how young you think your children are, they can't. They have unfiltered ideas that I think help us not lose our sense of wonder and question. Environmental print. So a lot of that out there, serious science, restaurants, word work. One story, I know stories. When I was observing a teacher in a school, challenge schools, where the students come with varied experiences, she was a first-year teacher. I'll never forget it. I went into her room and I thought, oh no, her vocabulary is so above what these students are going to be able to understand. And then I went back 8 weeks later, and I was embarrassed at my thinking. And I will tell you, it changed my views when I later became a principal. That one experience really stuck with me because I'm still talking about it. But when I went back to that room 8 weeks later, oh no, everyone in that class was talking the way the teacher did. She developed and scaffolded their understanding to her level. She did not come down to a level of their experience. And my thinking is very flawed. So when I talk about word work and vocabulary and saying not real or artificial, which I mean the same thing, but really just driving down the road, thinking of things that you see, all of that word work is hugely important. Sorting anything you can find. You don't need to buy things. I mean, you can go out in the woods and find things. Sorting shapes and colors, because that will allow the children to observe after that big word look. What is it like? What sticks out of their life? What do they have in common? No matter what kind of job they have down the road, it's going to be important for them to see things that are like, things that are different. How can I make meaning of those things? Can't leave that. You can see I'm kind of looking at my content because I want to put my content in front of students. Of course, coins and skip counting and patterns. I know coins for my own son is difficult, and still I started saying you can name them, you can have them. It's amazing how his piggy bank filled up and how quickly he became very interested in how many coins it would take to earn something that he wanted. Maps and globes. Okay, there is so much you can do with maps in terms of kids, young children understanding where they are in their home, where they are in their home, their neighborhood, their community. A lot of students see a flat map, and they really believe the world is flat. And then when they have their first experience with a globe, they're like, oh, these things are a lot closer than I thought. I thought they were 3 feet apart because they didn't realize the connection. Or a little seconds later, we realized, hey, we're just a globe that's what keeps us up there? Are we going to fall? When I throw a ball, it falls on the ground. What makes that happen? That makes me afraid. So again, curiosity, I believe, is starting to explore whatever is developmentally appropriate for that age, and really piquing their interest so that there is a desire to learn about letters and sounds and numbers and time. And we miss without talking about music and just the joy that it brings is dimension and color and shape. And technology. I was last year at a retirement event, and there was a lesson two, and it was a retirement event, so we were all not that interested in her. And she had her iPad that she was working on, so being an educator, look to see what she's doing. It held her attention. She manipulated, she knew exactly what she was doing. And when I went back to work, I said, in 3 years, when that little girl gets to our school, and I said to her grandmother, oh, she could go to elementary schools, because we need as educators go places to prepare for the generation that is about to knock on their doors, for the very reason that I talked about in the beginning, which is developing a curiosity so that they continue to explore and challenge us and push us and take us to a better place. And I have to tell you, as an educator, I feel as hopeful as I have ever felt continuing to work with young people. And the fact that you all are here today is one of the last things I'm going to say before I read my final quote. Being a lifelong learner yourself, having your child see, how do I go about problem solving like that? Where do I go to get information? What do I do when I get frustrated? How do I work with others? Do I call my sister or my neighbor? How do we problem solve together? The fact that you're here shows the model for your children about being a lifelong learner and possess knowledge is power in every aspect, not just selecting education choices. It is the power that allows you to be successful in anything you do. And I'm going to end with my last and favorite, and my name is Elijah here, because I talked about question. Question, create quality of life. Successful people ask better questions, and as a result, they get better answers. But also recognizing, as we say that we have the challenges of this own journey, and I think that's in that journey of life, and really should manage that journey. There's sometimes really ways that you're not only the child, but you as a contributing member of the group. So thank you for your attention. Got your tickets to take with you. I think, the one that I can caution you about and let you is when you make that decision, there's going to be time to I hope that was the right decision. We do that now. I used to pass it forward as well, so that's how I do this, how I do the best child. But there will be moments when you agree, whatever decision you make, when you think that my child should get its school and have the best for the whole, or maybe I should choose a public school or diversity, or a different kind of field to be able to get there. Always are going to be somebody you've done it. Here's the answer to that. Talk to your child's teacher. That is not the partner within the school what's going on. I think a lot of times parents are worried about going to jury trouble, start something. But I've lasted my experience. My question is the right my daughter. Talking with the teacher, right away. Maybe she needs maybe someone's outside as well. So that's my decision making. We've heard about education. The other thing I want to talk about too, as you talk about developing curiosity, life skills. I have to go out for not giving the children shelters all the time. We all know about parenting, not to do it, because it's a trap. And I think sometimes it's like this question of what we're talking about. We have to find answers and show how to problem solve and model for them as well. As you look at museums, we do that in the museum, but also when I was at my residence, we developed
This is amazing. If you, I'll try to repeat it in here. There's some other things about supplemental programs and training, asking, and education, I see some of the English that make it starting special systems and overburdening children. I'm wondering, is it thing or saying is it passing matters and what are some pros and cons? I agree with you. I think that the most important parts of childhood is being outdoor, not being scared, not being exhausted all the time. And I think that's a readiness in today's world. You think if I do this, then whatever my child can be successful. Don't buy it. I think, and I speak to as well. The most important thing that they need for a child is to make sure they have exposed to the outside of the world. Whether that's a preschool, whether that's the museum. Independence is important. You can't go to work. You may not spend the entire day. That's right. And to really they can help with that. It's key. I also have children that they might not just to explore the world, to use movement to those things and some children are to start, some children late, and you get to gather that from preschool teachers, you follow instincts. I think the larger thing you with the schools and the enemies that's been waiting much of our day as some children that extra year. Some periods can information available to that time. Then you make a decision today. Then you have information, and then you can evaluate. You can look at this working, is it not working? So from a parent's standpoint, don't rush yourself. You use the best knowing your child, and you go with it, and then you reevaluate. And I can tell you, as I said to you, you continue to evaluate until you're there, and you don't shut that process is not always to anything. Get comfortable with it, because it's going to be around for a very long time. That's I know that this moment, given everything what I know about you. There's things with this, that won't take long to do. Personal learning, independence process, I can't involve your mom's cost. So also making decisions, family, things not based on at all. I can tell the things that my son and I'm very lucky to take retire a few years after being at work and for school. Not working there. My son born. It's just a lucky year. So the question is, you can tell me that in the back. Okay. I'll just say this in our intro. We are so slightly that really have classes where you choose private, independent, and you lost spot. And I think I can say that it's a visiting. The school is really planned to be thinking about moving. It may be very customized, having parents to the schools and say, I don't know about. And she's been talking to it and you gotta just go with it. You asked a question, and the certainly have tuition associated, but there always some basic financial scholarship possibility. So don't discount sort of tuition charging option without exploring what that access would look like. I also think that the decision at home needs to be thoughtful, and sometimes families may give it a shot, and then if it doesn't work, sort of make that alternative decision. And it's different, maybe more space, less space as you get older, and you don't fear questions, but you need to keep in mind the fact that the opportunity is probably larger at lower levels, depends on schools, and you just knock yourself out at the end of the day. If not, it's happy.
The interview process, I'm sure there's some across the cities.
that's where, as we expect gratification of something that not every day is going to see out from school, that's really what you're looking for.
I think there's one on your stress. If you're stressed out, it's at least so the more you explain the point is that this is a good process. I mean, everything has these two ways. You want to make sure that that's schools that you do with your family and your child as well. So I'm urging you around that as well. Not only strategy, parenting strategy, they're like your child. But I think national enrichment interviews, goals, and shows to make right for as you mentioned, right, us, family, as well as it can be a process. Many of it is make you much older. But the more we do that is we're just gonna be some man, we're gonna go share, whatever, and but casual, and there's not the thing, that's not much more instead of everyone doing touch, whatever process I have, yes.
What I will say, and I don't know what the average division has, but I know in the private where you all are now that there are iPads and goes to preschool, but is there in K and 1, and then, so that will all our entire county, not a sure tech Chesterfield, downtown where I am, there's technology, computers, different tools in the classroom. And I think that would be true anywhere in regions, that there is going to be technology in the classroom. In terms of prepping for that, again, I think it is sort of a family decision. What I'll say is that, I think they naturally have whatever they need to be trained on. When they come in, there's certain skills that you want them to have. Just thinking naturally, to go along a lot of the museums, there's technology there, touch screens, things that they can move and manipulate, so they probably, you're trying to have more access than you think is traditionally thinking. So it isn't something I would, I think some personal family decisions, I would say. But I definitely know when they get to kindergarten and those places in this region, and probably they're going to have exposure to technology.
I don't think there's any expectation in the schools that you can work technology knowledge. I will actually say that we have seen a decline in children's fine motor skill, ability to hold a pencil and do things because keyboards and games do not create any sort of hand strength. And I would offer a right balance in exposure to technology and making everybody watch all about and planning from the Mars in a minute. So I think it can be an academic debt too much technology from you're doing a journal or in the work and you've got 6 people around the table and you don't have the hand strength to make your share ball, you're not going to want to pick up that one. So I think just striking the right balance. I agree with you. Because of the reason they didn't have technology in it, and that really are ages. Because I just wanted what I knew probably once you touch it and then that would be what you wanted to do. But they will over time need that skill. But not for preschool program now. So they're trying to decide in next year instead of junior K. directly into the preschool programs in the school that they're going to. Some of them are thinking about doing it, some of them want to keep them with their friends and keep them in the preschool. And I do not think that my preschool location has, I mean, my elementary school has preschool. But I'm wondering wish I did if it did. So I'm just curious how do you assess that? What is this new thing about having preschools become a part of, kindergarten? Are we going that direction where you start to see preschool instead of kindergarten? Preschools, first of all, it was there was a legislation to allow preschools, so that's probably really a lot about that. Many divisions try to expand some of their preschools. Most of the ones that I'm familiar with preschool, you would be age 4, and they would use need space because they have gaps in their academics or they would be financial need. I mean, that's a short version of it, and so there are not preschools in every school, usually. And there are, there's an interview process, and you just as you can, independent schools, always participate in applying to preschool, and then they will assess whether or not your child is eligible to come. The preschool, and Jack, again, I think it begins the same day as the kindergarten. But I'm not 100% sure that that's true in this division. But if you contact your local school, they will usually put you in touch with the preschool department. They can answer any questions you have around preschool related to where you live or what are the criteria for the specific type of, if there are different types of preschool programs too, depending on the division where you live. And that's the same thing that in schools, that preschool is used for identifying gaps. I can't speak for every independent school, but I can tell you in the independent school world, in their training areas, some schools have a transitional kindergarten, sort of that summer day. Some programs have a 4-year-old program, but I would absolutely say it is not something you have to do. If you feel like where you are, and that prior kindergarten is a good fit and meaningful, and the child is getting what he or she needs, there's no need to sort of jump in. If you're feeling like that may not be as rich as I'd like it to be in terms of curriculum, and you can take a look at sort of that pre-K option. I know that independent school has some additional K through 8. I know the parochial schools K through 8. I know that some schools have that extra step, but that does. It's a good fit for that pre-K program. You don't have an admission process to worry about, but that entry K is not diminished by that. Many of the kindergarten programs are full day. Carrie and Jennifer, are y'all back there? Are y'all's full day? Yes. You identify an important issue, and this goes back to the lady you mentioned over programming. At the end of the kindergarten day at 3 o'clock, they're worn out. They need to get in the car, they need to go home and have a snack, and they just need to be. And so what you're seeing is appropriate, is absolutely, the right way, and as he gets older, his stamina is going to get better, but I think that the full day kindergarten is probably the most typical. It's in the whole school system too.
Yes. Most. I'm not sure about the whole state, but I think most people are now.
And I can't speak for every independent school, but that is the trend that we've seen.
There used to be more division, like there used to be half day. But I think there may be just a few, like you said. I think most are full day now.
Yes, back and back.
I'm the mother of twins. One boy, one girl. The girl is very promising.
Well, first of all, when you register them for kindergarten, that might be a nice time to kind of segue to that. I will tell you, this is just a principal talking. And 1 year I had 8 sets of twins and a set of triplets. I couldn't believe it. Really, it was just something in the water. I really encourage parents to have them be in different classes to develop their own independence and work and study habits and that kind of thing. However, there are times when you determine that having them together is a better decision. I know it sounds like I'm just wishy-washy from the book. Not really, because I think nothing is ever going to be just perfect in black and white. But I will say, starting out and developing their own friend groups and independence, teachers will often plan together at a grade level, so there should be commonality in the work that is appropriate to where they are. So there will be some differences, even if they're in the same class, there would likely be some differences. But I really encourage our parents to have them start out in separate classes, because there's a point when they won't be able to be together. And the sooner they sort of come into their own independence, I just found that it tended to work better. But I never say never, because there might be something I don't know.
My girl actually, she gives me lots of questions, right? When I was taking the gas in the car, where did the gas go? Last week she took. And then she came to me and they said, I have a question, can we turn the ocean waves direction? Isn't it like curious? I see a lot of intelligent questions from her, and I don't know that whether should I use that potential that is God given in her, like maybe direct her towards some special, I don't know, like, or leave her on her own.
Your son who doesn't ask the questions may have that same gift, he just may keep it inside. I think when they're very little, it's very difficult to know exactly. You know you have potential. You just don't know how and when it's going to be unlocked. And I would certainly continue to stimulate that curiosity and I couldn't answer her questions. I would not know how to about the waves and maybe not even the gas. But I would let her continue to bloom. I think once she goes to school, you're going to see her hit her stride, and you're going to watch him hit his stride too. And then with more school experience, you'll know. My experience with twins is sometimes it's better to have them be separated and find their space. But I think most schools are going to try to work with you in terms of what your parental desire would be, and there's going to be some balance. But I think sometimes Quagger twins find their voice when their sibling who does all the doing and talking isn't right there. She just talks for him. That's it.
Okay, yes. I'm a former first grade teacher in Chesterfield, and I was always thrilled when students would come to me and they knew their letters already, they knew their letter sounds, and they could write their letters and have a skill. I've been out of the classroom a while, but what I'm hearing is that first or kindergarten is what first grade used to be. Would you say there's any truth to that? And if so, should we be nervous about it?
Well, I do agree that, like I said earlier, knowing your name, how to hold a pencil, being familiar with letters and sounds. I mean, it is great if they come knowing all that. I mean, it is. They'll take a PALS assessment that is given in the state of Virginia, and they'll measure those exact skills. But there'll be some students who won't have all the letters and sounds, and that is really okay. I mean, it is okay to come as you are, and then we differentiate the program for you to meet your needs. A little to Amanda said, the way students attach to abstract concepts like that, they hit their sweet spot in a very different, it's not always at the same time. Okay, you turn 5 and now you can do this. Or they walk at different times, how they take those abstract symbols and realize that they're sounds and they put it together, and so I don't know that I necessarily agree that they didn't have kindergarten when I went to school, by the way. But so if whether first grade is the new kindergarten, I don't know that. I would you have to know the time span. I mean, yeah, whether kindergarten's in first grade, I'd have to know the generational timeline that you're talking about, but I will say that there is rigor in kindergarten where a lot of times they had, at least in public school, they had play, and they still have those play areas because we recognize the importance of the art and the play and the development and the listening stations and all of that. But again, I think if you talk with your particular school where you'll be going, you can access, every school will have what their standards are for that particular, for the kindergarten level, and you'll see exactly what they're expected to do by the end of the year. Most counties reflect what is on the Virginia Department of Education website for standards. So if you don't feel comfortable going to school, you can go right to that website, download exactly what it looks like, and you can see what the expectations are by the end of kindergarten. And that gives you some sense of, where they should be when they come in. But yes, if a student comes in and they know all the letters and sounds and colors and shapes and they can count to 10 and count by twos and all of that. So the real message is from wherever your child is today until that time, just exploring and working with them to let them go to the level that's appropriate for where they are in time. And I can assure you, you're not likely to rush it, but they're not ready for it. It's kind of like potty training. If you try to make it when they are not ready, you will get very frustrated because they're just not ready. And it doesn't mean anything's wrong with your child or your child's not healthy and beautiful and happy. They've just got their own timeline going on. Do we need to be mindful of it? Yes. I mean, we want to catch things as soon as we can. And your pediatrician can work with you on that, as long as some of the documents that Amanda's already mentioned about, where should my child be by age 3, by age 4. My own grandson had severe speech articulation problems, and they lived in Texas, and so I just didn't hear him on the phone. It sounded like gobbledygook anyway. But when we got out there, we just downloaded right off the internet what letter sound should you be able to say by age 2, and he was age 2. And then we started the process to get him speech because he was not what we should have mastered by that time. And so when I say that, yes, everybody reaches their own time, but I do think we want to use everything available to us to be sure that it is proceeding within a norm, within a range of what we would consider normal, so that if we need to interject any resources, we are ready to do that. And I use the example of my grandson because now I no speech anymore, because it was addressed, I think, at an early time. So I give that as kind of an example.
I think too, there's, as you mentioned, there's so many resources in the community. Never be afraid to ask for extra help. Your pediatrician is always a good place to go. At Commonwealth Parenting, we have a free helpline. You can call and ask questions of our educators and talk with them on the phone. We have one-on-one consultations if you want a little more information. We even have child observations where we'll go into the preschool, take a look at the child, talk with the teacher, and help you decide if your child is ready for kindergarten as well. So there's always different areas to ask for more help and get resources.
And the thing that I'll offer, and you're a first grade teacher, you know this, every child is going to read at a different point in time. And that's one of those thresholds that parents look for very carefully. Oh my gosh, if my child's not reading by the middle of the kindergarten year, what's wrong? Chances are nothing's wrong. So you've got to be patient and let them reach that milestone in their own time and in their own way, and differentiating in the classroom, both in the independent school world and in the public school world, is what happens. You can have two cognitively capable children who are equally talented, and one might know their letters and the other might not. So you do want to equip them, and those preschool world and the museum world has really heightened that readiness in terms of literacy, I think, and that's why I see the shift is perhaps children coming into kindergarten with a different kind of skill set because they've been exposed earlier on.
Just to give you a personal, my child, my oldest child, did not read until second grade, and she is now a beautiful reader and a writer. She wasn't ready, and that's, as I've found, she doesn't do anything until she's ready. But she was not ready. We did drill, we had extra help, all these things. She's not reading, she's not writing. Second grade clicked. I was very worried about it as a teacher, but let it click, and then she took off, started reading chapter books, and now she's, she writes beautifully and still reads. So, yes.
It hit me when you said something about them holding a pencil. What do you do when they're 4.5 and there's no clear delineation as to which hand they are dominant with? He uses both hands all the time. So, and no, he doesn't. I sat down with him before and tried to have him hold the pencil properly because I'm a former elementary school teacher too. But should I push him to use the right hand or just do both? Or do grips for both and just see? I mean, that's something I haven't even thought about until today.
Mixed dominance sometimes can be a function of developmental readiness. I think that handedness comes along when you're ready to figure that out. Some children are able on both hands for a lot of sports on one, pencil on the other, eating on the other. I wouldn't force anybody. I would maybe put a fork in the middle of the table and say pick it up and see what hand leads to that.
It depends. It's 50-50. Sometimes he goes to the left, sometimes he goes to the right. That's what, because when my oldest it was very clear. He's like, oh yeah, you're a right-hander. I'm left-handed, my husband's right-handed. So I know that he's got the genes on both sides. So, but it is about 50-50 time. I mean, we haven't been able to tell it all because there's times he throws it both hands. Yeah, you just never know.
You might be able to tell somewhat about a product that is produced, whatever he's trying to do, a star shape or a tree or whatever.
Like one hand's more proficient than the other?
Yes, just from a proficiency standpoint, but that's really not my, I guess would say my area, but I would have said exactly what Amanda said. And, just to see, because one will likely rise up as the one that's more proficient, yeah.
A couple more questions. I see two in the back, so you two will have to be our last ones. Back here.
I'll start and I'll let Andy go. One of the things with the assessments that we do at the very beginning of the school year and then prior to arriving to kindergarten, and then there are PALS assessments that we talked about, and many divisions also do an assessment with mathematics. And once you determine where the students, and usually there are more than one student that work together, then you begin to differentiate their program based on what their needs are. For example, in reading, you often will have, kindergarten is a little bit different, but the idea of common experiences that you want everyone to have, and then you will differentiate in smaller groups in order to meet their needs. Because I think Amanda said, and my first grade teacher friend here, you will have students that are coming in, some that are just beginning to even think about a letter or sound, all the way up to some students who are reading. And so the teacher then wants to take that child, that student, where he or she is, and show growth. And almost everyone will be able to articulate to the parent, your child started here, and now your child is here. And that will come in the form of parent conferences, their report cards, depending on what type of assessments they use. It's often, we want to pick them up from where they are and then move them forward. And there are many systems in place to help us track that. And then the other side is tracking and you communicate it so that the parent is a partner with the educator to be sure that we're going in the right direction.
Also remember that the academic ability that some children come into a classroom with isn't sort of the whole picture. Sometimes a child can have all of those skills, but the social and emotional piece may not be exactly. So the lessons in kindergarten are certainly academic ones, and you want that growth, but you also want there to be sort of attention to those other areas. And I'm as guilty as they come. One of my children was a really fluent reader prior to kindergarten, and of course I thought that was the end-all be-all. But socially and emotionally, he may have actually just been right there in the middle where everybody else was, and he didn't really need for the whole part of the day to be focusing on those academic things. He needed to get his interpersonal side, balanced out too. But the differentiation in children will have that with estimates in their classroom, whether it's in independent school or public school, because a lot of them come in with just sort of being or generating around a certain literacy area. We all want to encourage that.
We'll take one more question. she's got personality.
Well, I'll just speak to locally. There's, if you have questions around English as a second language, and I think also, we agree with you that being able to speak more than one language is a huge asset to a person as they grow up. So we definitely want them to embrace two or more languages. There's in Rocco, there's a welcome center, and so if you contact, and if you have other localities, they probably will have something separate. I just know this one off the top of my head that works with parents who have English as a second language. There are all kinds of resources at the welcome center, and so if you contact whatever school where you live, and if you happen to live in Rocco, they will be able to give you I don't know the number off the top of my head. You may be able to find it on the website, but I would contact the school and just talk with them. They can make you aware of resources. In terms of the decision, I think in the end, like I've said, in the end, take everything you have available to you. And also would be important to share your views around language speaking to help the teachers understand and embrace what you're trying to do with your child.
I think that, and Carol said it well, we're trying to prepare children for a world that is a global world, and language and fluency in language is part of that. And we are seeing in the independent school world more and more kindergartners coming in with versatility in more than one language. The competency in English, even if it lags, if you go through an independent school process, that is taken into account. The child's sort of language background is different. You want there to be enough English for there to be success in the classroom. And I can tell you that in any school you walk into, there are shy children. There are children who are clinging to the back of the leg and not necessarily wanting to take that step. And I believe that teachers who teach kindergarten will put on the ERB to be able to manage every kind of personality that is there and have her have that confidence that she'll find it. Just because she loves you, she's that shy.
There's information on the table if you didn't pick it up when you came out from all of our organizations. Thank you for coming today.